So when we have a graph in which we multiply something outside of the function, in other words, we have some constant a that we multiply by the sine of x or the cosine of x, what that's going to do is that's going to change the y values that we attain for all of our basic values of sine of x. So I've got my graph right here, y equals 2 times the sine of x. Here's the effect of that. First of all, we're going to use the same sign pattern that we just developed over here. Remember that the key points were all at 0, pi over 2 pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. The same key points are at work here. So those are the points that we're going to map along our x-axis. 0, pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So let me take a moment and map those here. Okay, so there they are right along my x-axis right here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key points. So what's going to happen at each of those key points? Well, normally our sign values would go 0, 1, 0, -1, and 0. However, what we're going to do is we're going to multiply each of those values by 2, because 2 is now our change in the amplitude value. So in other words, we're going to take each of these y values that we would normally have and multiply them by 2. So instead of going through 0, 0, well, it'll still go through 0, 0. Well, okay, instead of going through pi over 2, 1, now it's going to go over to pi over 2 times 1 times 2. That's 2. Instead of passing through pi 0, well, it'll still pass through pi 0, but at 3 pi over 2, it'll go to -2 this time. And then finally at 2 pi, it'll go back to 0. So let's see what that looks like. Our normal sine function here, let me make here's a 1, here's a 2, here's a -1, here's a -2. Our normal sine graph, remember, would have looked kind of like this right here if I were to sketch this in. I'm just putting it in yellow just so I have a nice bright sunshiny comparison right here. But we're going to use 0, pi over 2, we come to 2, pi, we're back down to 0, see if I can aim my pen right here. Pi, we go down to 3 pi over 2, and then at 2 pi, we're back to 0. It's a nice smooth sine curve. Use your imaginations a little bit there. I'm sure you all can here. So, boom. All right. Notice what happens. Our amplitude has changed. Our amplitude, our distance from the center axis to the highest point is equal to 2 this time. Our period is still 2 pi. Nothing's changed. Our domain, -infinity to +infinity. Our range has changed, though. Our range is always affected by our amplitude. So our range here is a closed interval that goes from -2 to +2. So all the values along our y-axis are only affected by that 2.